Um, I have the honor of introducing Brittany Coleman. She is the CEO and founder of the consultancy Kelsey Street Group, bringing years of nonprofit leadership all the way up to the C-suite. And after burning out, she reimagined how she works. And now she's the go-to boost of capacity and creativity for visionary leaders. She helps teams get focused, reduce crises, and create sustainable progress. Yes, all while keeping the heart of the mission front and center. And today she is here to talk about selfish goals. I asked Brittany to come back. She spoke last year. It was such a valuable session. I asked her to come back and talk about goals again. But as we were talking about like how the audience this year is a little bit different and we're just zhuzhing everything up a little bit, and she pitched me selfish goals. And I was like, yes, run with it. Can't wait to hear it. So, Brittany, I am thrilled to have you here. Why don't you take it away and do your thing?
Thank you so much, Olivia. And thank you everyone for joining. I did my personal outreach, which is very uncomfortable for me. It was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. I've learned that something that I need to work on is inviting people to the party, right? Like sometimes you're doing something really awesome, but you don't invite people to the party. And so I'm trying to get better at that. And so thank you all for taking up that invitation, or, even if you can't be here, thanks for watching it later. Thanks for sharing it with your network. I'm just so proud to have all of you here. And thank you so much to Olivia for creating this space. I feel like we were talking in the last session about connecting with your why and sharing your why behind your business. And it feels like you've created this opportunity for the people who are speaking to just really deep dive and nerd out deep into their why, which I love. And so so grateful for the opportunity to think through all of this stuff and talk about it for 45 minutes. It's a dream. Okay. Selfish goals, mapping success to feed your spark. Selfish goals is intentionally a little bit provocative, but I've um I've talked about how I'm in my selfish era right now, and every time I say that, people are like, "Oh, that's not what you mean," and you're acting in alignment and you're doing whatever. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but that kind of feels like it's burying the lead. I genuinely feel like I'm in my selfish era right now, and I don't mean that in a negative way. And I don't think that I'm harming anyone by doing that. In fact, I think I'm showing up better for the people in my life because um, I'm centering myself. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Yay, slides are working. Okay, you should see my face on there. Um, okay, a little bit about my timeline and this putting myself at the center of my life and why this selfish thing has sort of seated in my mind. I got the opportunity when I was pretty young, when I was 27, to co-found a nonprofit organization that is amazing, does amazing work, if I say so myself. It grew to a $3 million a year organization with 15 employees, which is I didn't even know that would be possible. That was not my dream or aspiration at the time, but it's what's happened. And we also were able to achieve a huge policy victory. I've studied education and have been sort of in the world of education and education advocacy since college. And we got a huge win, a win that I'd literally been working towards since I was an intern. And it was incredible, the thing that I'm probably the proudest of, the accomplishment that I'm the most proud of. And I felt horrible. I felt like a failure. I felt burnt out. I felt like a miserable person to work with. I learned the term distress tolerance, which if you're ever walking to your car and fumbling with your keys and you drop something and it is the worst thing that has ever happened to anyone and you completely melt down about it, that's low distress tolerance. And that was me, to a T. That was my personality for a while. And I just lost myself and burnt out. And right, distress tolerance. And so it's you'll see it. You see it with little kids. I see it with little kids now too. Or if someone's going through a hard time, I'm like, oh, their distress tolerance is low. Just to be able to recognize it. Anyway, So, burnt out, bad news, not a fun person to work with. Took a step back, was able to take a sabbatical for 6 months. So I was able to fully step back and unplug from work. And uh, that was incredible. It also felt like I had been on a treadmill and all of a sudden the treadmill stopped. And I was like, I'm just gonna like bash my face on the floor. Like I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not like going, which is like very champagne problems, but it was very real. I was like, what am I gonna do with this time off? And I am very proud of myself that I advocated for myself and found a sabbatical coach. So someone who like coaches people through career breaks and transitions like that. And she had me come up with a purpose statement, which is what's written in my slide there, which is to put myself at the center of my life, which is something that I realized at that time was something that I had never done. And like, besides being like burnt out and a total mess, I'm generally like a pretty happy person who like, takes care of myself, but genuinely had never thought about like putting my needs first and centering myself and what I wanted and needed in the, grand universe of decisions that I had to make and how I structured my life. While I was on sabbatical, I also had a fun surprise, which is that I got a divorce, which was not in the cards. It happened while I was on sabbatical. And I'm going to share why I got divorced, not to blow up anybody's business, but like, because I think it's related to this, like putting yourself at the center and selfish goals thing. My husband at the time really wanted to have a kid. Originally, we sort of didn't want to have kids, weren't sure. He decided he really wanted to have a kid. I decided I really didn't. And I had just told myself that my charge for the next 6 months was to put myself at the center of my life, and was sort of faced with this prospect of like completely going back on that, right? Like, honestly, I didn't even really consider it too much. And like, it was fine. It was amicable. Like, we loved each other very much, but just realized we wanted different things and ended up getting a divorce. So, like, oh my gosh, right? Like, what I did not think I was going to be spending my time on. But just a very clear example, like, very quickly and very big, of putting myself at the center of my life and making selfish decisions that were going to make me happy for the long term. When I went back to work, it became clear, and I'm still sort of like reckoning with this and feel like guilt around it, but it was clear that the organization that I had created was built on a foundation of suffering. Like, that organization only functioned with a dysfunctional me at the center of it. Just like giving and giving, suffering and suffering, sacrificing and sacrificing. And I couldn't do that anymore because I had had this experience of not doing it. Like, my body knew what it felt like to not be stressed all the time. Like, my mind knew what it felt like to, I don't know, be able to like read books about whatever and like think about topics that had nothing to do with work. I started doing pottery while I was on sabbatical. You'll see some little like Easter eggs in the presentation of some pottery pieces that I've made. Like, I was now like a person with hobbies. I wasn't going to give that up. And I had said no to sacrificing myself and my happiness for the sake of the person that I loved the most. And if I wasn't going to sacrifice that for the relationship, like my most important relationship, I wasn't going to do that for a job or a business or an organization or a team. Like, I just wasn't going to do it anymore. And so I ended up leaving that organization, which was very hard. And they are like still in business, still doing great things, but it just wasn't healthy for me to be part of it anymore. And I needed to make the selfish decision and prioritize myself, which I did. And I'm very happy that I did. And now I get to be an entrepreneur, which is also extremely scary, but I love it. And I'm putting the thing that I love at the center, which is talking about goals and working with people on their goals, because I find it super inspirational. Okay. Done talking for a minute. Thank goodness. Your turn. I would really like you all to spend 2 minutes thinking about some aspect of your business or your work that you want to have a goal around. Or maybe you feel like you should have a goal around, although we'll talk more about like shoulds and my feelings about things you should do or should have. It can be big, it can be small, it can be long term, it can be tomorrow, next week, something you're scared about, something you're excited about, something that's fun. Just what's something that you would like to have some more clarity on? Okay, it's been 2 minutes. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you share what you wrote down. That's just for you. Although I will try and make you talk later. So just be forewarned. Gird yourselves for that. Okay. So, not to potentially immediately shade you for something that you may have written just now, uh, but these are some like trap doors that I feel like people fall into without really even knowing that they are. And there's a lot of things, right? Like, I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of like structures you can use to set goals and processes you can use to set goals. I tried to tailor this a bit to like people that I assume are like brave, ambitious, uh, starting their own business, like very highly capable, right? Like the people that I think are going to be in this room. And I think probably the biggest things that are going to happen to us, like me included, is focusing on shoulds, like things that you should be doing. I feel like a good rule of thumb, if someone asks you like what you're working on, whatever, if you keep saying like I should go to this or I should have this or I should whatever, it's a good sign that maybe that's not actually what you should be doing when you really step back and think about it. Because you're not saying like I want to or I get to or I'm excited to or next week I'm going to. You're talking about like, oh, I should. And I think, especially as entrepreneurs, if you're like at an early stage of your business, there's a lot of shoulds that you feel like you should be doing in order to make sure that your business is successful. And then on the flip side, like once your business is successful and you've got more work than you know what to do with, there's all of these shoulds that feel like they're leading you into burnout or that like your business is taking over your life. So just being mindful of shoulds. Another thing that I didn't think about calling my presentation this, but like I think genuinely think about this all the time is bullshit goals, which I mean is like you need to have a goal because you have to have one for some reason, right? You're filling a thing out and they're asking you what your goal is. And you just need to put something down and it needs to sound like real words and it just needs to exist, but you don't really care that much about it, and you know that like in the future you might completely forget that it exists. If you've got a lot going on, you might like deprioritize it because it's not really real. And I think this can also happen sometimes when you get like overly tied to form over function, right? Like SMART goals or KPIs or OKRs or whatever other acronyms. That it's like if I cling tightly enough to this structure, then my goal will make sense. And I think that like that's actually not the thing that's going to make your goal make sense, and we'll talk about what will, but like it's more about like making sense to you and being meaningful to you. I also want to give you permission. Sometimes you need bullshit goals, right? Sometimes you're in an online workshop and someone says you have 2 minutes, you have to come up with a goal. Maybe you just need to come up with a bullshit goal because you got a little assignment. Like that's okay, no judgment. I remember a colleague told me this that has stuck with me for a long time, which is some targets need a bullseye and some just need a hit. And like knowing which is which can help save you a lot of grief. And like bullshit goals, sometimes you just need a hit. You just need to get the thing done and like that's okay. And you don't need to give yourself a hard time about it. The last one is doing too much. I feel like in nonprofit world, which is where I came from before, and also in entrepreneur world, especially solopreneur world. But honestly, even if you have someone that you can delegate to, you're probably not delegating enough to them, and you're probably doing too much, and you're probably feeling compelled to say yes to too many things and being pulled in too many directions. And you don't want to bite off more than future you can chew. Like you don't want to like I don't know, paradoxically set yourself up for failure by setting these ambitious goals that really aren't going to serve you. And the thing that I wrote down there is connected to this, which is suffering is not a prerequisite of success. Like, you don't have to sacrifice yourself and your happiness for your business to be successful, or for you to achieve your vision of success. Okay, so now that we talked about all the things that you probably did wrong, just kidding, I bet you set great goals. Okay, these are the guiding questions that honestly, I've tried to explain to people what happens when I do a goal setting session with someone, and it is extremely hard because I basically go into a fugue state, and then what emerges is this like wonderful goal, and I'm like, "Oh, that was so amazing." And it's like, "Okay, well, Brittany, can you write out how you did that?" And like the answer is fully no. I need to get better at that, but these are some questions like when I step back and think about it. There's a lot of like particular questions that I ask folks to kind of like pull their goals out of them and like put aside the shoulds and put aside the like I just need to get this done or put aside the like wanting to do everything and like really get down to the heart of the matter. But I think these ones are the biggest ones, which is when future you is wildly successful, how will they feel? And really like it feels weird to center like how am I going to feel as the most important thing, but like as I learned, and probably people who have like a shared similar experience of burnout, you can be doing wonderful, incredible things and feel like a failure and feel really bad or feel sick. And that's not what we want, right? Like, we want you to be doing wonderful, amazing things and also feel awesome. And like, how would you define that? What needs to be true in order for you to feel that way? Um, I can tease this apart more. I'm going to go into some examples of goals that we created for folks in the next slide. But like, what needs to be true in the world for you to feel like it's okay to feel happy or safe or energized or whatever? Like, what needs to be true for you? And then what evidence are you going to need to see for your brain to believe that you have actually reached that success? Again, I'm hoping this will get more clear in the next slide when we go through some examples. But like, oftentimes there's this gut check question. Sometimes like that step number 2 of like what needs to be true, you're going to come up with a lot of ideas, and that actually might not be necessary. And like, again, speaking to a room of people who are probably like very brave and ambitious, I'm going to tell you to aim lower, right? Like, okay, like in order to feel like I'm like financially secure or safe or proud or whatever, I need to have like $100,000 in my business bank account. Like, do you really? Do you though? Like, can you aim lower? Can you make this easier? Like, could you feel this way even if that thing wasn't true? And like, really gut check that and like, test yourself, lower the bar. Like, where do you start getting uncomfortable? Like, actually, no, I wouldn't feel safe if it was less than that. Um, anyway, we can go through that in the other slides. But yeah, gut check and iterate on that second one. Okay, these are some examples of selfish goals, which is not how I framed them with people, my clients, when I was creating them with them. But these are some goals that we came up with for entrepreneurs, which is who's in the room right now, which I'm so excited about. Okay, so the first one is take a fully unplugged 1 week vacation in 2025. And this was for an entrepreneur who had reached that like successful, right? They had clients, they had business, they were doing work that was meaningful and they cared about. And what they wanted, what success meant for them in 2025 was being able to find balance, I guess, or like being able to feel re-energized and not feeling like they were just chasing the work or letting the work take over their life. And making sure that like that thing that had been true for me, right? Like the business only functions with a dysfunctional you at the center of it, like really making sure that that wasn't true. And so what he needed was to take a fully unplugged 1 week vacation. That's how he would know that he had reached that level of like balance that felt right for him. And gosh, what else did I want to say about this? I love this goal so much. I forget. I'll come back to it if I remember. Okay, the second one. This is for a person who is newly self-employed. They'd never worked for themselves before. They'd also never had a baby before, and they got pregnant. Um, and they were like, "How am I going to figure out? Like, can you even take maternity leave as a self-employed person? Like, what?" And as discussed, I do not have children, but this person was going to have a baby, and we needed to figure out like how is she going to feel safe and secure and like she can have the experience that she wants with her first child. And so we had an actual number there. I'm just not like blowing up her business by telling you how much she needed to be earning. But it wasn't just that she needed money in the bank, she actually needed revenue coming in order to feel safe. And in terms of the duration, we had to use a benchmark because we were like, I can't figure this out. This like state paid leave thing is really big and complicated. And like, I don't know how many weeks it would be. So like, we just need to have a benchmark, like benchmark it to something else. And like, you can figure out what that benchmark is later. I feel like, yeah, trying to work towards these like anti-perfectionist tendencies too, of like, as long as it's clear and you would be able to tell afterwards, like, did it happen or did it not? It's good enough. And so we sort of called it without having to dive into like hours of research and like calling up state programs to figure out what the number of weeks were. But okay. Given those examples, I would like for you to go back to the goal that you wrote out at the beginning and think about, right? Like, are they shoulds? Are they bullshit goals? Which honestly, it's okay. You're only working on this for like 2 minutes during a presentation, but like just gut check, right? If it's something that might be worth taking with you into the future, what would a maybe less bullshitty goal version be for you to carry with you if you're going to spend more time with this? Think about how you want to feel. Think about what would need to be true in order for you to feel that way. And what evidence would your brain need in order to know that that was true and believe that you were successful so that you felt the way that you wanted to feel. Haha. Now I'm going to ask you to share things out. Okay, you don't have to share like the exact words, right? Like that can be very vulnerable. You can put them in the chat if you want to, but just like if anyone has something that they can share about like what changed or what did you realize, or maybe even if you weren't able to make a ton of progress, like what you would do, like if you came back to this, like how would you approach it differently?
I can go. The first goal, like when you first told us to write something down, like I was kind of hanging out in the should zone. And so for the second round, that last 2 minutes, I kind of got out of the should and like started to think about like what do I actually need and like what's going to make me feel good about my work and my business as a result of this. Not like I feel like I should be doing this because everyone else is doing this or like other businesses do this. It was more grounded in like what's going to make me feel good about where I'm at with my business.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. I feel like paradoxically, this is what I was gonna say, although it wasn't about the section that I thought. In the Barbie movie, if folks saw that a few years ago when that came out, like billion-dollar movie about Barbie, I remember America Ferrera's monologue. It was basically about shoulds, right? Like the impossible to achieve, contradictory, uh, like giant mountain of expectations and shoulds that are placed specifically on women. And I feel like that happens like with all sort of like sectors of identity and certainly for entrepreneurs as well. Like if you tried to do everything you should do, you literally couldn't because it all contradicts each other. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I'll share. Hi Brittany, good to see you. Yeah, my first goal was a bullshit should goal as well, and going back to it a second time, just allowing myself to get a little bit more focused, like Brandon said, like what would be like very specific to me feeling good in my business and not the people that I serve feeling good about my business, right? That about me feeling good. And what that immediately shifted for me is, the sub goals from that become very, very clear. And nothing about this says I need to be on Instagram 7 days a week, right? Like nothing about this goal says that I need to be an expert in marketing. I need to be an expert in storytelling, any of those things that I put in the should category all the time. So it feels good just to have like a very focused goal and to have some to have some momentum behind that and direction and how to make that mark. Thanks for this.
Thanks, Anne Marie. I really appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that. Does anyone else have something that they want to share that went well, or maybe like something that didn't go so well, where you're like, I was thinking about this, but I still kind of feel stuck on XYZ? Spoiler
Brittany,
alert,
I do.
there's not a whole lot left for this. There's not a whole lot left for this presentation. So like we can share out, we can talk, we can workshop. Go ahead. Sorry for talking over you.
No, that's fine. I didn't come up with anything bullshit because I actually have been really working on this and like the feelings around safety and like at what point do I feel safe? Because we're making the amount of money I would have wanted like 3 years ago, right? But like life keeps changing and there's like new things. Like we're as a small business, like we don't have healthcare. So we're an uninsured family, both with graduate, student debt. So like I'm now trying to make way for making more money to cover like this stuff and retirement and just like all this other stuff. So I keep going back to what makes me feel safe when that bar keeps changing. So it wasn't a should, it was more around the metric of safety and like what feels safe when I can't really pinpoint a number and how to arrive at safety when I can't pinpoint a number. And what I got was just, I would like to just have clients coming in, like that rotation of knowing that there's like impact and that our efforts in marketing and networking are paying off. And it's not necessarily like how much we make per client, but just that they're like finding us and accessing us. And then we're like, there's a giving and receiving that's occurring. But I still feel like I'm stuck somewhere in this scenario that I've shared with you.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Like, and I saw people putting things in the chat too, right? Like that was resonating, and like inflation and just like precarity and uncertainty, especially for self-employed people. Gosh, so when I am when I'm working on goals with people, those two examples are kind of like close to my own lived experience, but like there's some other people that I've worked on goals with that I'm like, I do like their experience and thing that they're going through is so far from my own personal experience. And like, I really defer to what my clients knowledge and expertise of their own life, their own industry, their own business, whatever. But what that means is like, I also can't tell you like, this is the number that you need to be making. This is what's going to make you feel safe. This is what's going to be okay. I will say that like for me, what has been helpful is having a financial advisor who can essentially tell her, Maggie, hers is her name, I need to feel safe. And like, this is my like risk tolerance. This is my whatever. This is what it costs to live my life. Like, you tell me, like, what do I need to be saving for retirement? What do I need to be whatever? And I know that, get a financial advisor, like seems like glib. You also might already have one, but just like that relationships with money and like how I grew up and like all of that, like I feel like everyone has their own relationship with money and like emotions around money. And like for me, untangling that has been really helpful with a financial advisor. I don't know. That also, it doesn't solve your problem right now, but like good to
No,
be
but that
listening to, like,
resonates.
yeah.
I mean, that definitely validates. I actually signed up for a program with Dow Janes, and I do want to put them out there because it is very accessible. And you kind of become, I like to do it myself. I am working on like sharing and like asking for help, hence my work with Olivia.
Yeah.
But I also think that financial advising is so personal and I want to just know how to do it. So
Yeah.
I have signed up with Dow Janes to teach myself, but I feel like you just validated that and like redirected me toward that avenue again. And that's the safety, is like informing myself and then passing that legacy on to my kids.
Yeah.
Brittany,
Thank you so much, Leah. Yeah.
Can I add something? So I think like an aha that I had when I was doing the exercise and also when Leah was talking was just about how like, yes, there's a number, but maybe the number is not what I need to focus on because the number is controlled by the pipeline And by focusing on the pipeline, which would be a bullshit goal if I just said, I think I need to have this many people in the pipe. Like that's based on nothing. I've been doing this for 1 year. My communications expertise vastly exceeds my business expertise at this point. So I think your prompt about like what evidence would I need helps me think about it differently. Like what I actually need to do is think about the evidence of what you need in a pipeline to make a business sustainable. And then that can feed the overall goal about it. Just sort of like flips on its head the way I'd been thinking about the number first. And I think thinking about the pipeline first makes more sense. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Amanda. You made me think about something that I feel like I ask every client when we're working on stuff, and I think people tend to have a preference for one of these over the other, is whether you have a preference for trust the process goals versus focus on results goals. And sometimes, often the situation you're working on is going to dictate which one of those you need. But like a trust the process goal is like, if I do X every week or every month or whatever, I trust that the result that I want will come. And my goal is really about staying disciplined and doing the thing that I know will yield results. And then focus on results is kind of like, yes, maybe discipline, but it's kind of like I'm neutral as to what the process looks like in order to get there. I'll find a path, but like I need to reach this destination by any means necessary. And so like people have different preferences for those, like what feels most like comfortable or doable for them. And I feel like a lot of times, so for example, the goal about maternity leave, that person is a very trust the process person. Like her goals that she has had in work and in life are very much about like the discipline. Like if you just do XYZ, like the results will happen. And this was a situation where that wasn't going to work for her. Like she couldn't just trust that she could do a good job running her business and maternity leave would take care of itself. It wasn't going to. And so she had to like switch to like a more like focus on the like a results based goal, and that was uncomfortable for her. And so it made sense that she needed some help to figure out what it was. And I don't know, Amanda, you just reminded me of that.
Yeah, and I mean, if I may add, I feel security is a very mental concept. So, as you said, Brittany, having a base number or making sure like basics are taken care of. Beyond that, everything else, we gotta trust ourselves that no matter what comes our way, we can always start, we can always capitalize on our own skills, knowledge, and build something. So, I mean, it's you can be chasing a number, but that number essentially will not give you the sense of security, because I've seen it firsthand. You put a goal, you achieve the goal, and you're still like chasing another goal. So it's a constant cycle. There's no end to it. But there are times when you're great, feeling happy in life, and you're like, yeah, everything's good. That's when you don't miss the security aspect. When the mind is right, when you're feeling full of vitality, everything's going good. So yeah, it's a state of contentment, which essentially get the basics right, make sure you're ready for the future, but end of the day there's no point in fussing about it. Like as you said, right, we don't have to suffer. Suffering is not required. So
Yeah, thank you, Deep.
Yeah, I really relate to what you said, Deep. I think like I'll just speak for myself, but like constantly moving the goalposts. Like when I look back to like a year ago and I'm like, oh my God, a year ago, Maria would have been like baffled at what I'm doing now. But like just kind of like in this constant state of like, oh, how can I be better? Like, what's the next thing? Yeah, and just like remembering to like slow down enough to like actually like celebrate everything that I've done and recognize that it's not exactly where I want to be yet either. Yeah, that really hits.
That's a great point. Thank you, Maria. I feel the
even
same
I
way too.
have,
Go ahead.
yeah, I have these perfectionist tendencies where I want to do everything. If I'm setting a goal, it'll be like all areas of life, all goals for each area. And probably I did something around those lines when we started. But as you mentioned that these all bullshit goals, and as I got more clarity, the only goal I had was I want to feel okay. I just want to feel better. I just want to be fine. That's all. That's the only goal. So there's a very nice book by Oliver Berkman called 4,000 Weeks, which talks about human finitude, that we only have 4,000 weeks and we most likely have 40,000, like 4,000 done, basically 2,000 done and 2,000 more left when you're in your mid ages. So how do we want to spend it? We can't do everything. We can only do few things. And that's why our goals also need to be very much aligned and focus on what's important.
Thank you, Deep. That also made me think about, like, I think sometimes if you have this sort of like internal compulsion to come up with bullshit goals, right? That could also be a way of making yourself feel safe, right? Like if I have 17 goals for my business for the next 6 months, that makes me feel like maybe I know what I'm doing better, or like I know what's going to happen, or gives me more of a sense of control over where I'm going. And again, like sometimes bullshit goals is what you need. It's good enough. And I think, having a goal similar to like making any decision is better than making no decision. I think having a goal is better than having no goal, because at least you've got like a general direction that you're working in. But yeah, maybe that, like, if you feel that compulsion of like, I need to have 20 goals or whatever, like maybe ask yourself, like, this feeling of control or safety that these goals are going to give you, like, how else could you accomplish that? Thank you for bringing that up.
It mostly leads to anxiety. It never leads to security. It creates more anxiety, because when you want to do everything, you get nothing done.
Yeah.
I also think that can be such a sign of a dysregulated nervous system, right? So when I learned that a signal of being in flight mode is like making lists and then making lists of your lists and then getting really into checking off all your lists on the different lists. Like, I was like, oh shit, I've been in flight mode for 20 years. So if you are noticing that your tendency around goals is like having a ton and being really perfectionistic about it, it might be a good cue to just like do some deep breathing, do a little ear massage, do some heel drops, take a walk around the block, and just like do some external things to help regulate your nervous system. And then check in again when you've come a little bit closer to center.
Thanks so much, Olivia. I wrote this down while I was preparing for this, but I feel like a through line of the sessions that I've been in is like taking care of yourself, like finding a way to take care of yourself and sustain yourself through what is inherently a difficult process in a difficult world. And like trying to run your own business or create something from nothing is inherently very hard. And you need to take care of yourself in all these different ways, like across all these different modalities. And so, yeah, that connected me with that, because I think that you led a session about some somatic stuff last year that I thought was very helpful, and I know that there's one coming up as well. And yeah, it's all connected, and really appreciate it. Okay, oh my gosh, we're at time. I've said to myself that this wasn't going to be an afterthought, and of course it is. So forgive me for that. I created like a separate little thing for people who attend the Thrive Summit, which is to do a one-on-one with me working on selfish goals. So we will workshop a goal, big, scary, easy, fun for any aspect of your business or your life. It's an hour. There's 5 minutes of pre-work. It costs $30, which when I told people this, they were like, Brittany, that doesn't even make sense, but it's fine. Like, I would love to connect with all of you for free, but I'm attaching a dollar amount to this because I need to be a better business person. You can use the QR code that is on your screens. I also put the URL. I don't know, if you get this later and you want it copying and pasting, it's easier, but you can take a picture of that QR code with your phone. I've done these sessions. This is where some of the like examples came from, and I love it. It's like the conversations that I love having the most. And I promise we would get farther than in the 4 minutes that I gave you to think about it in this session. So yeah, just want to invite you to that if you are interested.
Outstanding. A lot of you have been in other Thrive Summit sessions already, so you know what's coming next. I want to hear your top takeaway. I mean, we've all got a lot, but I want to hear one thing that you are taking away that you are committing to putting into practice or lodging in your brain from Brittany's session today. I want to see those coming in, and then go ahead and book those sessions with Brittany. That's an incredible offer. I have my calendar open right now. Can't wait to lock that down. Megan says suffering is not a prerequisite for success. Leah says the whole thing. Rebecca, prioritizing care for myself. Brandon, some targets need a bullseye, some need a hit. I wrote that down too. Scrolling. Jasmine, allow myself space. Maria, centering my desires and joys, not my shoulds. Anne Marie, revisiting the goal to see if it's a should or BS goal. Amanda, reimagining the goal processes to eliminate the bullshit. Whew! That was pure fire. Brittany, thank you so much for bringing all of this to us. I think this was just dynamite. Absolute gold. Look forward to hearing from folks as you implement all of this wisdom in the days and weeks ahead. Megan says, you're incredibly insightful and thoughtful and honest. Thank you for destigmatizing putting yourself first. Amen. Can't end on a better note than that. Thank you all. Go forth. Hope to see you in sessions tomorrow and Friday.